Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sentence Diagramming 101. This is still Chapter 2, Word Function, and we are in Part C, Objects. So this section is going to cover direct objects and indirect objects. So just like your sentence will have a subject and a verb, it's going to have an object, right? The thing that the verb is affecting. So remember all that predicate stuff? That's where we are now. So objects do come in two flavors, as I said, direct and indirect. So we're going to start with the direct object, which directly receives the action of the verb. So if you look at this sentence, John threw the ball, you're like, John is the subject, he's the doer or the actor. And what did he do? He threw. So threw is my verb. And then what did he throw? The ball. So the ball is the direct object. It is the object directly affected by the verb, making it the direct object. Moving on, we've got Sandra, and she's eating a pretzel. So Sandra is my subject, ate is my verb, and ate what? Ate that pretzel. So pretzel is the direct object. The puppy enjoys his daily walk, or like, what's the subject? Puppy, what is he doing? He's enjoying a thing, and then what is the thing he enjoys is that walk. Now you do have all these other words in here, right? Like his and daily, but those aren't the direct object. Those are adjectives describing the object. Which object? His, or which walk? His walk. Which other walk? The daily walk, right? So those are some examples of direct objects. Now, your direct object can be more than just one word. It can be an entire phrase. It could be a clause, right? I will try sitting in the new recliner tonight. So what will I, subject, will try? What will I try? That whole thing, sitting in the recliner. So that is my direct object. And then tonight tells me when, so it makes it an adverb. If I look here, writing full-time allowed her to quit her day job. So you're like, all right, writing full-time is my subject. What is it doing? It's allowing something. It's allowing the quitting of the day job, right? So that whole thing is the direct object. Now, just like you can have compound subjects and you can have compound verbs, you can have compound direct objects. It just means there's more than one in the same sentence. So finding direct objects, I'm sure this is accurate. Delighted whom, right? The teacher and her students. So those would be compound direct objects. Now, if you want to pause this video and work on exercise 2C1, direct objects, we'll come back in a minute and talk about indirect objects. All right, so hopefully you pause the video and you can go watch the video overview with the answers to make sure you got everything right. But you can also just check the answer key if you don't want to watch a video. Moving on, now we are into the indirect object. Now here's the thing. Indirect objects happen in sentences that already have a direct object. You're never going to have an indirect object by itself. It will always be in the same sentence with another direct object. And this happens because sometimes the verb affects more than one thing, right? If you say John gave Erica the book, John is the subject. He's giving a thing. What is he giving Erica? He's giving the book, right? So that book is the direct object, but he's giving it to Erica. So Erica here is the indirect object. She is indirectly receiving the action of the verb. So same thing, Sophie handed her mom the crayons. So hopefully Sophie is the subject, handed. Sophie didn't hand her mom. She wasn't like, here, crayons, have a mom. No, she handed the crayons over, right, to her mom. So her mom is the indirect object, and the crayons are the direct object. And just like everything else, your indirects can be super long. I don't know if you love Bruno, but here we are. He told me, what did he tell me, right? Bruno told me all of this whole thing, that the man of my dreams would be just out of reach. Betrothed to another, right? That's the song. Okay, but he told all that to me. So me is indirectly receiving all of this direct objectness. Now, why do we have these in parentheses? Because these are prepositional phrases. They're going to keep coming up. Eventually in chapter 3, we're going to specifically get to them, but you may feel like you know them already before we get there. So indirect objects. Now, with the indirect object, you can always rewrite the sentence and remove it by putting a to in there. So you can add a prepositional phrase, and now this is no longer an indirect object. Now it is just a to Erica. To is a preposition, right? And it is acting as just a prepositional phrase. So John, what is John, the subject, doing? He's giving. What is he giving? He's giving the book. And that's really your sentence. There is no indirect. object. And in this one, same thing. If you just hand the crayons to her mom is that prepositional phrase. So now we just have Sophie and she's handing some crayons. So we end at the direct object. Moving on, you can also have compound indirect objects, just like you can have compound everything else. So Mirabelle's mom gives who the food, right? This food is the direct object, but she's giving the townspeople and the family, those are the indirect objects. And you can also just have a party. You can have multiple objects, direct and indirect. So Louisa is handing the plates and the cups, right? So those are the things she's literally handing. So those are the direct objects, and she's handing them to Mirabelle and Isabel. So those are the indirect objects. And a lot of the times you can find that indirect by just asking to whom or what, and that'll give you the answer. But now you can take your time and work on exercise 2C2. It has both direct and indirect objects, but it's also about storks, which is kind of a cool movie.